for coming today. It is Student Success Week, Study Skills and Self-Care. So this panel is focusing a little more on the self-care aspect. Again, we appreciate you coming today. Just a quick introduction. My name is Amanda Perk. I am a coordinator in our Career Services office with our Student Employment Program, and I'll be moderating the panel. So really just asking the questions and kind of moving the conversation along. So we'll go ahead and have our student panelists introduce themselves. We'll start with Christy.
Hi there, my name is Christy. I'm in the Social Work and Human Services program at Columbus State. This is my second year, and I'm supposed to graduate this December. So doing everything I can to make that happen. That's a little bit about me.
All right, thanks, Christy. Weslyn, can you introduce yourself next?
Hi there, I am appearing as Eddie Davis on here, my husband, using his computer, but my name is Weslyn Van Dyke Davis. My major is criminology. This is my first year, mother of two, business owner, wife of 10 years. That's a little bit about me.
Okay, and Emma, go ahead and please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm sorry you can't see me today, but this is my second year at Columbus State. I'm a business marketing major with a political science minor. I have two jobs right now. One is in government, and then one is also with fashion, which I love. And yeah, that's a little bit of me.
Okay, thank you guys for being here today, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So first, I will just kind of start with this general question. What does self-care mean to you? And would you guys prefer that I kind of call on one of you to respond, or do you want to just respond as, okay, at least we have one response to call on someone. So Weslyn, what does self-care mean to you?
For me, because I do have a busy life, as do many people, I'm very aware of my responsibilities, and for me, self-care has everything to do with being intentional about the balance in my life. And so, you know, as much as I like to have fun, I am very aware of how much I need to sleep. And, you know, if I'm out for a date night with my husband, I make sure that I'm sleeping well, you know, and going to bed early the next night. So, and that can apply from anything from food to, you know, physical, mental, emotional well-being. It's all about balance for me.
Okay, great. Emma, what does self-care mean to you?
So for me, self-care is just me making sure that my mental health, my physical health, and my spiritual health are all being balanced. It just means taking time to make sure that I'm being healthy in every aspect of my life so I can pour into my classes and into my job and, you know, into my free time and things like that.
Good, so it's all about the balance. All right, and Christy, what does self-care mean to you?
Yeah, it's a lot like Emma and Weslyn are saying, you know, it is about balance. For me, self-care means recognizing, prioritizing, and then meeting my needs on the bio, psycho, social, environmental levels for optimal functioning.
All right, great. Yeah, so it sounds like, yeah, you all have a lot going on that, you know, as we all do right now, and balancing that really is a big part of self-care. Okay, we'll go ahead and get to Adil's question here in the chat. What do you guys do when you feel overwhelmed with all of the work you have and don't feel like doing anything, but you know you have a lot of work that needs done? So Emma, do you have a suggestion for that, or what's your response?
I would say if I have a really busy schedule, kind of what I do is I will make a realistic checklist. I'm not going to set any crazy goals that I know I can't accomplish in a day. So I'll kind of just go through, I'll look at my classes and say, hey, what do I really need to get done today? And then I'll just make a little checklist, and it makes me feel so much better to be able to go through and just check things off and be like, I am making progress, I am being diligent, and I'm getting things done.
That's a great suggestion. So yeah, making a list and prioritizing. That's a great suggestion. Christy, do you have any other suggestions or anything to add to that?
I do the same thing. I make the list and I prioritize, but I will prioritize what can I get done the quickest, just to get it off of my list and out of the way. So I'll usually tackle those things first before I go on to like a big project.
Oh, okay, good. All right, Weslyn, any other suggestions about when you're overwhelmed and have a lot to do?
Absolutely. When I am overwhelmed, I typically step away and I will do something, whether there's two things that my two go-tos. I'll either go 30 minutes and do a workout. I like to lift weights and I feel like that blows off some steam and just kind of calms me down, maybe perks up those endorphins, I guess, or, whatever it is that needs, to feed your brain and stimulate you, but it also calms me down. And then probably the next thing that I typically do is I really like herbal tea, and I might just step away for 30 minutes, get some of my favorite tea, and then do something that I enjoy that takes my mind off of my priorities, to be honest with you, because then it lets me regroup, and then I'll have to echo Christy and Emma that is when I actually will come back and maybe, prioritize my checklist so that I'm not scatterbrained. So.
That's a great suggestion. Thanks, Weslyn. So yeah, sometimes it can help to step back from it, take a breather, and then come back into the work. So Adil, I hope that gave you some good suggestions on handling the times when you have so much to do, you don't even know where to start. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just move on to a couple of the other questions. What is a self-care activity you do if you have only 5 minutes? And what is maybe an activity if you have an hour free that you might do? So Christy, we'll start with you. So if you have 5 minutes versus an hour, what do you do for self-care?
Yeah, if I only have 5 minutes, I'll check in with my 5 senses. So it's what's 5 things I see, 4 things I hear. I'll just kind of go down this checklist to recenter myself in the present moment. And that's just a quick centering. But if I have an hour, you're probably going to catch me talking on the phone, just talking to all my friends, catching up. All my friends are long distance. So I make sure to make that communication and catch up with them to refill my own social cup is what I call it.
Yeah, making those connections with others is really important, especially now. Emma, so what do you do for self-care if you have 5 minutes? And what would you do if you had an hour?
So if I have 5 minutes, I'm usually going to go grab a cup of coffee, get a snack, making sure I'm staying energized for studying, because you're not going to study very well if you're hungry or, just need some coffee. And then if I have an hour, or maybe even if it's just a half hour, I will usually take a power nap in between like work and like a really hard study session, but that's just me personally.
Great. And Weslyn, how about you? If you have 5 minutes or if you have an hour?
So with 5 minutes, what I typically do is I meditate, and for me, that's in the form of prayer. And so that is my moment to release my anxieties. If I'm anxious about anything, worried about anything, kind of release that. And it just strengthens me and allows me to kind of see the big picture rather than getting wrapped up in the, the little things that can feel overwhelming. So prayer is typically my 5 minute meditation. I might close my eyes if my home is quiet. I do have 2 kids. Sometimes they're in school. And then an hour, I'm either going to go do a workout, go sit outside, do a power walk if it's not freezing cold outside, something like that is physical.
Great. It's great to hear what you guys have developed that works for you. And sometimes we do only have those 5 minutes in between things, and sometimes we are able to have a little more time for our self-care. So my next question is, do you have kind of a daily self-care routine? Is there something, you start your morning out every day in a certain way? Does that change depending on what you have on your schedule? So Weslyn, can you go ahead and respond to that? What is your self-care routine on a daily basis?
Well, for me to feel okay, I love my candles. So I have a home full of candles. When I wake up in the morning, I typically go and I make my cup of coffee, and I get up before my entire household. I light every candle in my kitchen and my living room, and there's like 7. And I like the smell, I like the glow. I drink my coffee, I review my day. That's usually in the form of a checklist, or, prioritize my emails because I do run a company. And, take a nice hot shower, got my oils and my creams, and that usually sets me off to a really good day. But having that alone time in the morning where it's really, I have the ambiance, my beverage that I like, and then take care of myself physically is really, key for me.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like a great morning. I mean, just having a quiet house, the nice glow of the candles.
Yeah,
sounds really great.
My hour in the morning is my own.
Yeah. Oh, great that you developed that. Christy, how about you? What does self-care on a daily basis look for you?
I try to keep everything really scheduled. So it's like I wake up, I have my routine. I allot a certain amount of time. So from like this time to this time is going to be just schoolwork. And I'll take my breaks in between doing that to not be overwhelmed. But at the end of that time period, I put it down. I say, that's enough. And now I'm going to do something for me. And that's usually my arts and crafts or my hobbies. I like to crochet. That's pretty meditative. And I do it every day.
Okay, great. It sounds like you have, building in activities and things for yourself too is really helpful. Good. All right, Emma, how about you? What is your self-care routine? Is it the same every day? Do you change it up depending on what's going on in your schedule?
So I would just say my self-care routine for myself is more just, I really love coffee, so I will get up and I make myself a cup of coffee in the morning. And then just for me, it's really important to just have some quiet time before I dive into my busy day. And I guess my biggest thing for me is like having self-care. It doesn't have to be like this super elaborate thing. I just feel like for me, it needs to be intentional to make sure that I'm setting myself up to have the best day that I can have.
That's good. Thanks for sharing that, Emma. Yeah, you don't have to have this whole, elaborate daily routine if that's not what works for you. You kind of figure out what works for you as self-care and do that. So, and I think something you said was really important is just having that intention of, kind of the space and the time and giving that to yourself. So good. Okay. We've kind of touched on this a little bit, but are there something in particular you've done specific to your mental health? And then what about your physical health? Is that kind of one and the same for you? Do you do separate activities? Christy, go ahead. Do you want to answer that one?
Sure. For physical health for me, I find that I'm more interested in doing physical activities if I have like a little bit of nostalgia, if there's something exciting about it. Working out for me is scary, but rollerblading is exciting. So I'll go rollerblade, or I'll play Pokemon Go, something to make that fun. But mental health, I cannot stress enough how vital my therapist is to me. That's what I do for me for mental health, for self-care. I speak to my therapist on a regular basis. I can't stress that enough.
Great, good to hear. Wesley, I know you've talked a couple of times about exercising, and that's important, for you specifically as it relates to your mental health. But are there other things that you do for either your physical or mental health to take care of yourself?
I think that my days have to be very practical, and to kind of piggyback on what Emma and I think Christy agreed, it doesn't always have to be elaborate. So, I am a creative person. I do run a business, and that's very taxing mentally all the time, even though I love it. But, I am a creative person. My kids love music, so a lot of times it's just to be fun and funny. And, we like to write songs. And at night before bed, my children and I, we go into my bedroom and we have comedy hour, and they do little funny like skits, or, just like silly, funny things. Sometimes is for me, like that joy and that happiness and that humor has to be a part of my everyday. Going outside with my children when it's raining and it feels dreary and looking for toads. You know what I mean? Like that mentally is good for me. It disconnects me from the responsibilities of every day. I'm not paying attention to the clock. I might give myself an hour to do it, but I'm not looking at the clock, trying to time anything. I'm just laughing and having fun and making sure that I find an hour or so out of the day just to kind of invest in joy and laughter.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, just, humor and joy is so important, and just laughing to keep us going. Emma, how about you? Is there anything particular regarding your mental health or your physical health for you that you take care of?
So, I mean, along the lines of what has been mentioned several times here, my freshman year, I started going to the gym, and that was like a huge relief after just a really hard day of studying and, just maybe being frustrated or just having a super long day. For my physical health, that was like amazing. I love going to the gym. I specifically like lifting. And so it's one of those things where like the gym is fun if you're doing something that you enjoy to do. For me, that's lifting. That's not for everyone, but it's something that helped me out a lot. And then I would just say for my mental health, like the most important thing that I've done is just setting boundaries on my studying. Like, I'm not going to stay up till 3 a.m. studying because I know in the long run that's actually going to hurt my tests and my grades. So that's something that's important to me, is just, being able to set a boundary and be like, at this time, I'm going to go to bed because I do have to work and I do have classes. And it's, if you're going into the day tired, it's just going to make everything worse.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yep, setting boundaries, and that could be, with tasks like studying, or that could be with friends and family, with work. Whatever you need to kind of set those boundaries for. Thank you guys for sharing. We do have a question that came up in the chat, so we'll kind of see what you guys have to say. Is it better if I work for 25 minutes and then relax for 5, or work for 50 minutes and relax for 10? So, Wesley, do you have any particular stance on that, or what works for you that you found?
I'm in these types of things, I play it by ear. If I see some momentum happening and I'm doing well and things are going well for me on this assignment or task, I'm gonna go 50 minutes, and maybe I might take a 20-minute break, honestly, and that's okay. If I'm struggling or it's just not clicking, that is, to go back to one of the original questions, that's when I would, step away. 5-10 minutes, take a little break. If I've worked for a solid hour, I'm going to take more than a 10-minute break. I'm going to really step away for 15-20 minutes before I re-engage, because kind of to talk about Emma, what she just said, having that boundary to where you're not exhausting yourself mentally, that's always going to be a lot more taxing to bounce back from. So just being aware of where your line in the sand is, and as we all kind of agreed, having that balance. But that's something that's going to be different for everybody, and I think that everybody just has to be very in tune with themselves to see where that is for them.
Mm-hmm. Emma, is there a certain kind of time frame of working versus relaxing, taking a break that works for you that you found?
I mean, just kind of piggybacking off of what has already been said, I do think it's important to kind of read where you're at and kind of understand, okay, if you're really struggling, then if it's like one of my subjects, I try to put in a lot of work, but I'm eventually going to need to take a little bit of a mental break, whether that's just and I will even put a timer on my phone, and I'll just be like, I'm going to read this for an hour, or I'm going to do this for a half hour, like my math or something. And then I'm just going to take a few minutes off and just like not be thinking about that subject, so I can kind of regroup and come back a little bit refreshed.
All right, Christy, do you have anything to add for that question?
I would say my therapist has told me that the science she found says you should study for 30 minutes and take a 15-minute break. But to piggyback on Emma and Westland, for me, it's like I'm going to go until my eyelids are heavy, until I start like feeling the pressure, the drain. And then it's like, okay, it's time to step away. I think of a lot of self-care really is about being in tune with your body. You have to be able to recognize when it needs something and then prioritizing having that need met. So I'll step away for more than 5 or 10 minutes also. I'll go water my plants and play with the cats before I come back.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just really about being in tune with yourself, like Westland said.
Okay, good. Thank you guys for sharing. Adele, I hope that gave you some good information. It sounds like you probably just need to, test out a couple different things and see what works best for you, depending on what the work is that you're doing. And yeah, like Wesleyan said, if you've got that flow and momentum going, keep going and maybe don't break that, and then finish that up and then take a break. But if, you're struggling, give yourself, step away, give yourself a breather and then come back to it. So you might just need to see what works for you. Okay, so the next question I have, I know, we've all been doing so much virtual, work and everything, and we're so on our phones and computers right now, which can be really helpful. There's a lot of great apps or websites that can help with self-care. Is there one, like a mobile app or a website that you guys have found to be helpful for you in your self-care? Christy, do you have anything that you'd recommend?
I do, and the app that I use is not even really specified for self-care. I use an app called Cross Stitch, and it's basically a paint by number. So when I'm feeling really overwhelmed or stressed, I can pull it up, I can start painting by number, and next thing I know, my breathing has slowed, the muscles have like lost the tension, they're relaxed, and I just feel better. So that's my go-to. But for like an immediate thing, I found Reddit actually has a subgroup for like everything in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have found specific subgroups for anxiety, panic disorder, trying to survive college, and they all have Discords where I can chat any time of day with anyone about my struggle and get peer support.
Oh, good. So yeah, it sounds like you found just something that you can just do for yourself, and then also another thing that helps you connect with others. Good.
Exactly.
Wesleyan, is there any like app or website that you have found really helpful?
I don't use any specific like apps that are specific to health, but I will say that part of my self-care is music. I think music therapy is a real thing in these very dark winter months, especially in January. I feel like it's like extra dark and dreary in January. I find that I'm always turning on my Amazon Music app and I'm finding music that, speaks to me. Like, when it's dreary and raining outside, I like doo-wop. Okay, I like to listen to like doo-wop. So that speaks to my soul, makes me feel good, makes me happy. And then the only other app that I use that I think that would kind of play into this conversation is with my busy life and my kids and like all the things and on top of school, sometimes it's hard for me to turn off my brain and go to sleep. So I use like this white noise app that kind of just like takes me down and kind of drowns out my thoughts, if you will, so that I'm focusing on those sounds rather than letting my thoughts take over my mind and keep me awake. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that, for a lot of people that when you finally lay down, you're ready to go to sleep, but your mind is not ready, it can take, a little bit of work. And yeah, with the help of a white noise app, or I listen to audiobooks as I fall asleep. So I'm, not focusing on my thoughts, but but hearing something to help me go to sleep. So great. Emma, have there been any apps or websites that that you found really helpful for self-care?
So actually during the pandemic, I found out about this app and it's called Headspace. And basically it's just used for meditation, or like Wesley was saying, you can have like music / white noises to go to sleep to, or just, you know, like meditation guidance like throughout the day for like any type of like, whether you're struggling with anxiety or things like that. I found it super helpful. I use it all the time. I really love it.
Great. So we've got some good suggestions here. Is there something related to self-care that you haven't tried and you want to try and just haven't yet? Weslyn, is there something you've been wanting to try?
I would love to try acupuncture. I would love to try that. My husband, you know, has psoriatic arthritis, and he's done some really cool things and sees a naturopath, and you know, so proud of him because, you know, he, I think, is a progressive male in that he's not afraid of like going to seek these things out. And I'm super jealous of his acupuncture sessions. You know, we're all like this right now. Like you said, everything is virtual. We're all on a computer, you know, the tightness that you get through here. And I would, you know, I find that to be very interesting. So that's something I would love to do.
Great. Christy, it sounds like you maybe tried that. It looks like you, okay.
I wrote the same thing. I was like, what's one thing I haven't tried that I want to? It's acupuncture. I mean, I know people with arthritis who came off of all their meds after acupuncture. I heard that it helps with stress, anxiety, depression. Like, I need to get in there and see what that's about, you know?
Okay. Yeah, so maybe you guys need to connect and find someone to do acupuncture with.
Yeah.
All right, Emma, how about you? Is there something that you've wanted to try for self-care and just haven't been able to yet?
So I guess this is more of like an organizational thing for me, because if I'm more organized, I feel like I'm taking better care of myself in my schedule. So I've been wanting to get better at like more of like monthly planning and things like that. But I know that's like not kind of what things were that were mentioned, but acupuncture sounds great. I should probably try that too, but.
Great, yeah, so just kind of being able to plan ahead would be a little more helpful for you, it sounds like, Emma. Well, great. So I have a few more questions for you guys. But again, any of the students listening here today, if you have questions that you'd like to you know, get some options for, get some insights for, please go ahead and add those into the chat and we'll ask our student panelists here today. One question that I'd like to talk about too is, you know, spring versus summer versus winter. You know, there's different things that we might need to do to take care of ourselves. Wesley, like you said, January is just so dark. There's no sun and it's so cold. So can you guys talk a little bit about, you know, how you do self-care like in the winter versus the summer, if there's any difference? Christy, do you want to go ahead and start with that one?
Yeah, so in the winter, my self-care is a lot more home-based. You know, I'm not driving or going outside as much. So it's going to be like learning new hobbies. I taught myself a new way to crochet this winter. I learned origami. I'm not great at it, but it's getting there. You know, it's more home-based. I made my own candles. Weslyn, you might like that. Summer is much more active. I'm outside all the time. I'm rollerblading. I'm playing the Pokemon Go. Last summer, I decided to fly a kite. I haven't done that in 8 years. So just really, I get to engage with my neighbors more, a lot more active in the summer.
Mm-hmm. All right, Emma, how about you? What does self-care look like in winter versus summer?
So I would just say when it's winter time, I'm obviously indoors a lot more. I'm going to the gym a lot more. But when it's summer, I'm really taking advantage of just getting outside, whether that's exercising outside or just taking a walk outside and just spending more time outside, because I think the sun is just very cheerful and it makes me feel better about my day. So.
Great. Weslyn, how about you? What does self-care look like in summer versus winter?
It's very similar to what Christy and Emma said. You know, it's easy in the summertime. It's sunshine and you can get out And, when you step away, you can step away outside. In the winter, for me as well, it is, mostly home-based. And so it's all about, what do I do when I step away? What do I do with my downtime to balance my life? And, it's like my husband, for instance, he put in like this like LED light that changes colors. So like when we put on music, we might change the lighting in the house, right? And the kids are having a ball. We're putting on a happy music. We're a very music-oriented family. So that brings us a lot of joy in those dark months. You turn everything hot pink in the house and you're playing some like music that you love, it can change your entire mood. We love fires. We do a lot of fires in the winter time. And, even, last weekend in the snow, we had a fire going in the snow, stuff like that, in a fire pit, obviously. But just coming up with creative ways to kind of emulate, what you might not be able to do in the summer, but still have those fun moments. In the winter, I'm always going to the grocery store seeking very fresh things, because we might do tropical smoothies or, something that we might miss from summer, and trying to fuse it into winter as well. So, but I'm a mother, so it's, a lot of my self-care too has everything to do with making sure that my kids are having fun with me when I'm stepping away. And it's a little different for me in that it's still work, but how do I make it not work, not, or how do I make it fun for the whole household, I guess, rather, not just myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, it sounds really fun at your house. Hot pink lights, dance parties with
We do
tropical
have
smoothies.
fun. We do have fun. Whimsical is the house, probably what I strive for in my house.
Good. Yeah. Well, those are some great suggestions. One question I do want to spend a little bit of time on, because it does relate to the other portion of this week, Success Week, study skills and self-care. But what type of self-care do you do, for example, when you have midterms coming up, during exams, when you have a big project due? So what kind of self-care do you do, or would you recommend during a time like midterms or finals? Emma, how about you?
Well, I think the most important thing when you're approaching midterms or exams is that you are planning ahead, because obviously you're not going to want to jam in this crazy study session right before you're taking an exam. So with that in mind, planning ahead. And then for me, and I know I mentioned this earlier, but my self-care is, again, I won't stay up till 4 a.m. I'm just not going to do that. And I learned that in my psychology class, that it's actually worse if you're staying up late and then going into an exam or a final. It's proven that you will have worse scores. So my thing is just, I'm making sure I'm planning out in advance, and then I'm making sure I'm getting good sleep. I'm staying hydrated. I'm eating, so I'm not tired or fatigued, or because, if you're going into a study session tired, it's not going to go very well. So I try to just make sure that I'm setting those boundaries. I'm putting in some good work, and then I'm going and I'm getting some decent sleep.
All right, so yeah, planning ahead, making sure that you get enough sleep, because that is really important for self-care too. Christy, how about you? What kind of self-care do you do, when you have finals and exams?
Similar to Emma, I make sure that I am getting enough sleep. I'm not going to do a huge study session with no breaks. I'm not going to study till 3 a.m. I'm also going to make sure that I'm eating healthy, full meals, because I want to have the energy for the brain power, That's one of the biggest things. I had something else I thought of. I like to try to teach the material to a friend. So it's they're my study buddy, and I'm just going to teach it to them. And if they comprehend what I'm saying, then I think I got the material. I got it. I'm good to go. So luckily I have a good support system that is happy to be on this journey with me.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good. All right, Wesley, how about you? Self-care during exams and finals?
I agree with everything Emma and Christy said. I do similar things. how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. And so if I know I have something coming up that is a big deal, I'm going to kind of put it into little categories, master them just, a little bit at a time, and set little goals for myself. I'm also not going to do anything else big in my life at that time. I'm not going to go, to volunteer to like host or plan an event or do something big that requires a lot of me in the moment where I need to be focusing on this. So just making sure that my focus is in the right place and setting small goals. And I always like to treat myself after as well. So it's like, if I do this and I do all these small goals, I'm going to do this for myself after. And it just kind of makes me enjoy it. And it's a little celebratory. I'm a celebratory, I like to celebrate things. So, it just makes it a little more fun for me too.
Well, good. Yeah, having like rewards or something to look forward to when you kind of get through it. Yeah, those are some good suggestions. Thank you, guys. One other question too I had is, what happens when you kind of get off track with your self-care? Maybe it has been really busy and you haven't been able to kind of devote the time, carve out the time for that self-care. What can you do to refocus and get back on track? Weslyn, how about you? How do you get back on track?
Yeah, this has happened to me many times in my life. And for me, it is, first of all, having a little forgiveness for yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't mentally browbeat yourself into feeling guilty. It is what it is. Recognize it and then come up with a plan, right? So for me, if I am off track or spread thin and I know it, then I try to, first of all, you know when you feel that way because the pressure starts bogging you down. And then, I will go, okay, tonight, for instance, I'm going to go to bed early and might get up a little earlier, and I might do that all week to get me back on track. So it gives me 30 extra minutes to kind of address the things that I need to address. So really it's all about time management, and sometimes things get in the way of your structured plans. I think that to be successful, you have to be flexible anyway. You have to be able to adapt, but where you recoup your time, if you really think about it and you think about your hours of the day, you're able to do that without exhausting yourself, as Emma said, by staying up till 4. You just might need to do a little tweaking. So again, it's all time management and just figuring out where you can add a little more time throughout the day to kind of circle back and address the things that are being missed.
Great. And that's a plug. I think we do have a time management session. I don't recall the date or time on that one, Jeff, if you have it handy. But yeah, we do have a session on time management. So even if you aren't able to attend, again, that will be, we'll have that recorded and available to watch later. All right, Christy, how about you? If you've found yourself kind of off track with your self-care, what do you do to refocus?
I start by try to recognize what is my biggest need. Am I hungry at the moment? Am I tired? Am I overworked? Do I have too much on my plate? And then where can I address that need first? That's my priority. Take care of the top down. For me, my Monday and Tuesday every week right now is fully booked, back to back. So I have to fit in the small self-care. It's like going and picking up that smoothie, treating myself to dinner out because I can't waste time cooking, just the small things here and there to keep me going through those busy periods until I can get to a time when I can actually settle down and focus on myself more.
All right, great. Those are good suggestions. Emma, how about you? If you have gotten off track, how do you refocus your self-care?
So I know I talked about this a little bit, but I'm just going to take a step back. I'm going to reflect and be like, okay, let's bring it in. What do I really need to focus in on today? Because I know it's so easy to be doing self-care and then it transitions to like, okay, I've been doing this for a while and like, I do have to get back onto my study session or, whatever I'm doing that day. So again, just making a little checklist, making it realistic, and just, you know, starting with, even if it's just a very small goal, being like, hey, I'm going to finish reading this chapter, or I'm going to do like 5 math problems, just kind of easing back into it, and then just kind of go back into full swing of your study session.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you guys for sharing. We do have a question here in the chat. If one self-care method is not working for you, would you keep going and hope that you'll get used to it, or would you find another self-care method? Emma, do you have a response to that?
I would say if you're trying a specific self-care method and it is not working for you, it is absolutely fine to experiment and try other things. Not everyone can give you great advice, but in the end, you're going to know what's going to work best for you. So of course, you can try things that people recommend, but some people's self-care looks different, and all of our schedules look different, and what relaxes us looks different. So it's absolutely okay to go on and try something else that you think is going to be good self-care for you personally.
All right, thank you. Christy, anything to add to that?
I completely agree with trying to find something else. You know, I think self-care is a topic that there's a million different ways. You know, there's a million different ways to treat yourself. And so if something's not working, there's a higher probability that something else will, and it's better to just stop wasting time and get to that immediately. So keep going through, keep looking for different things.
Yeah, find what works for you. Wesley, anything to add to that?
I have nothing to add to that. That was perfectly said, and I completely agree.
Okay, great. So yeah, Adil, hopefully that helps. You know, if you don't, what you're trying to do isn't quite working, it's perfectly okay to see what works for you and test out a couple other things. All right, so we do just have a few more minutes here, so I want to just kind of open it up to see if you just have any other suggestions about self-care. If how can you help others with their self-care? Are there things you would recommend? So any kind of closing thoughts that you guys want to share here today? Christy, we'll start with you.
I would kind of piggyback off that last question. You know, something I recommend is continuously trying new tips and tricks for self-care, continuously finding like if your interests can be used towards self-care. I think it's good to have a huge toolbox, and so the more that you can find that works for you, the more you can rely on when you need them.
Okay, great. Wesley, how about you? Just any closing thoughts, or if someone wanted advice about self-care, what would you recommend?
I really recommend trying to identify what doesn't feed your soul. I personally think that people inundate themselves with outside things that they need to cut off, and have a limit to. Social media, it's not self-care to scroll through Facebook and look at everybody else's life when you're trying to focus on the health and wellness and success of your own journey that is specific to you. Someone else's journey is different. To stare for 1 hour at Facebook and people's timelines, that doesn't really do anything for you internally. And really just cutting out the outside world and the social media things that can influence maybe even your thought process of how you view yourself, where you think you should be. I think that really is something that I would highly recommend you cut out of your life during this important time. It doesn't really, unless you have a project on it, it's not feeding you, So to eliminate things that are unnecessary and that do not directly impact your health, wellness, your perception of yourself in a healthy manner. Those things, I would say, make time for better things, make time for experimenting on things that do, something for you physically, mentally, emotionally. So.
Great, thank you. We do have a kind of a follow-up to the chat question. how much time should you give a new self-care activity that you're trying? I mean, personally, I would probably, I mean, it depends on what it is, of course, but at least try it a couple of times. You know, is it just a matter of getting used to something, kind of changing your schedule? You know, it could just depend on what it is, but of course, immediately, if you figure out it's not for you, go ahead and switch. But anyone have any thoughts on that? A certain time frame you might, you know, give a new activity?
I think it does depend on your level of comfort. You know, if you're extremely uncomfortable, stop it. You know, like stop. But if you're a little more tolerable, then you're like, yeah, maybe you give this a couple more times. Maybe you try this every day for a week or for 2 weeks, because we know that the process of building a new habit does take time, and that's what we're essentially trying to do with self-care, is build a habit of treating ourselves. So maybe like a couple weeks.
Yeah, well said. All right, Emma, did you have any kind of closing thoughts, suggestions that you want to share about self-care?
I would just say the most important thing to remember is that self-care is going to start with you, so that you can in turn, you know, check up on your friends, be like, hey, are you doing okay? Something me and my friend always do is we're both very busy, and I'm sure everyone here, we're all busy. Anyway, my friend will always text me and be like, what did you eat today? And just check up on me and make sure like I'm actually, you know, having a decent meal and I'm not running myself too thin and I'm taking care of myself. And I think self-care is also just about surrounding yourself with people that you know are going to champion you in whatever you're doing, and that you can also encourage them and their self-care too.
Okay. Thank you guys so much, Weslyn, Emma, and Christy. Thank you guys for sharing your opinions here today and what works for you. We've got some really great suggestions on self-care and things that you can do to take care of yourself.